기분 so blue 이런 생각이 들때
Hi, good afternoon, and welcome to Ateneo Art Gallery's Art Speak Online. I'm Boots Herrera, Museum Director and Chief Curator. Today's session is in line with the exhibition Ang Ink Story that marks the 30th anniversary of Ilustrador ng Kabataan. It's currently on view at the second floor gallery, the Prints and Drawings Gallery of the Ateneo Art Gallery here in Arete. The success of Ang Inc. is not only evident in the 3 decades of existence, but also in the accolades of its many members for their respective projects. Our focus today is truth telling, a timely topic at a time when facts and realities are continuously being questioned and distorted. Children's books, through its illustrators, writers, and publishers, play an even bigger role now in presenting and ensuring that stories of everyday Filipinos continue to be told, especially among younger generations. It is thus fitting that we present this program in collaboration with the Philippine Board on Books for Young People, or PBBY, a private non-stock non-profit organization committed to the development of children's literature in the Philippines. To give a message on behalf of PBBY, please welcome its chair, Ms. Paula Cabochan Reyes. Paula?
Good afternoon, Boots. Thank you. So I am Paula Cabochan Reyes, the chair of the Philippine Board on Books for Young People. And in behalf of all the board members, I'd like to welcome all of you to our panel discussion this afternoon. It is a very timely topic in line with this year's National Children's Book Day theme, Tahanan ng Katotohanan, Aklatan. So PBBY believes that books are bearers of truth, not only in the words that make them up, but also in the illustrations that accompany them. These illustrations draw us into a world of multiple perspectives and allow us to see from another's point of view. They help us appreciate the stories, draw our attention to things we might have missed, and empathize with the characters. And so we hope that the discussion today will highlight the very important role illustrators play in the creation of children's books and encourage those who are interested to become illustrators themselves and truth tellers. Thank you, Boots.
I'm on mute pala. So thank you. Thank you, Paula, for that message. Our moderator for today is Ruben Totet de Jesus, a former president of Ang Inc. and one of the organization's founding members. His illustrations for the book Ang Mahiyaing Manok, published in 2000, garnered an Encouragement Prize in the 2000 NOMA Concours for Children's Picture Book Illustrations in Japan, and was a runner-up awardee at the New York Showcase exhibition of the Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators. Ang Mga Anak ng Araw, published 2 years later in 2002, also reaped another Encouragement Prize for the NOMA Concours for Children's Picture Book Illustrations. Totet is a faculty of the College of Fine Arts, UP Diliman, and has been a member of Ang Inc. since 1991. So please welcome Totet to moderate the group and to introduce our panelists.
Thank you, Boots, and good afternoon to everyone. Thank you for joining us as we share how children's book illustrators tell their stories through the artworks they create. Through their presentations this afternoon, we can get an idea of how they, in their own distinct way of visual storytelling, share with the Filipino youth the truth and relevance of the stories, themes, and topics behind the children's books they produce. Our first speaker is Liza Flores. Liza became a member of Ang Ilustrador ng Kabataan in 1994 and is one of the leading children's book illustrators in the Philippines. She has won the National Children's Book Award for The Secret is in the Soil in 2012 and Ang Maliit na Kalabaw in 2018. She mentors illustrators from different countries through Room to Read, an international nonprofit organization. Recently, Liza also wrote and illustrated the children's book, Sungit. Liza also runs Studio Dialogo, a design and illustration studio here in Manila. She designed Karapat Dapat in 2018, which was included in the White Ravens list for 2020, a selection by the International Youth Library of notable children's books around the world. Liza.
Hello, good afternoon. I'll just share my screen. Hold on. Good afternoon. Couldn't share my screen. Okay, hold on. Okay, can you see my screen? So since I'm the first speaker, I'll tell a short story about Ink. So this is Ink. In 1991, this is where everything started through a workshop organized by the PBBY and Goethe Institute. Here on the left is Mr. Reinhard Mickel. He was the facilitator of the workshop. And to the right, you'll see Sir Larry Alcala, national artist. Larry Alcala, who was the head of the PBBY then and national artist for literature. Beside him is Rio Alma, Rio Almario was the chair of PBBY and Larry Alcala was the illustrator's representative in PBBY. So Ink will not be here today if it weren't for PBBY and Mr. Larry Alcala. So here's some pictures from that workshop. That's Totet de Jesus, our moderator up on top, and Robert Alejandro at the bottom, two of our founding members. So it was also during this workshop that Ink signed this proclamation of organization. And as you can see, it highlights the objectives of the organization, which is to professionalize the industry, uplift the lives of illustrators, develop and raise the quality of illustrations in children's books, and set up linkages with other sectors in the publishing industry. So this is how the children's books looked in 1990. This is when I joined. So these books were published by Cacho Publishing, Bookmark, Hias. And then at the bottom, you'll see Sina Elefas at Estogodo noong unang panahon, illustrated by Mel Silvestre. This was actually created during that workshop where ink was born. These books were published by Batibot and Cacho Hermanos. And this is also, my first book was also part of this series. And these are some books from Adarna. Early 2000s, Lampara books came in. And these are books from OMF. So aside from Bible stories, myths and legends, a lot of the stories tell the experiences of the Filipino child. And these are more books pala from NGOs that tell about our history and about the environment. These are more books from the environment. So these are the stories that we share with the children, the Filipino child. And I'd like to highlight some books that tackle with somehow more difficult topics, like this one, which is Mama's House, Papa's House, published by Adarna in 20, hold on. So I think this story is, I think the choice of the topic was, I think, might be not controversial now, but back then it was a statement, I think, from Adarna to recognize that parents do separate. We still don't have divorce here, but it is something that children have to go through when parents separate. And I think also the choice of colors and the choice of illustration of Mark Salvatus is also a statement in itself. It's very strong and loud color red, which is a very passionate color, color of anger, but also a color of love. A more recent book is My Family, also by Adarn House. So this one talks about different types of families. And as contrast to Mama's House, Papa's House, you can see how playful it is. Even the format of the book is very playful. You can flip through the book is divided into half horizontally. So you could see that there are different kinds of family, and it's okay. And it recognizes that these are accepted types of families, and children who are in these types of families would also feel more, I guess, normal. Another story is Isang Harding Papel, illustrated by Rommel Hawson. So this is about martial law, about a child who grew up with a mother who was in prison. So Rommel used the image of the roses and flowers to show the feelings of the little girl in the story. So he also used flowers to show celebration at the end. Another story is Maanghang na Salita, illustrated by Beth Parocha. This is about verbal abuse in the house. So visually, Beth was able to show how harsh words affect a child and how sometimes a child mimics what he sees at home. So here in this story, she drew a little girl shouting at the little boy, in a way mimicking how her family, her experiences at home is. So this story shows how powerful words are, but just as hurtful words can be, words can also heal. So in this spread, Beth showed how loving words can heal someone who's hurt. This one is Sakto Lang, a story about a family of spiders. Kasi ano to, it was first day of school and they had just time to buy new school supplies and new shoes. But their money was just enough. And imagine buying shoes for spiders when you have 8 pairs, you need 8 pairs of shoes. So this is a funny and light-hearted way to show something that ordinary families go through. And this one is Karapat Dapat, a project with an inked project with Canvas. It started with this banner project. So every year, Canvas organizes a banner exhibit around the UP Oval. So it's like a public exhibit with different themes. For this year, this was in 2016. The theme was children's rights, human rights, and then Ilustrador ng Kabataan illustrated the parts on children's rights. For this exhibit, we highlighted the 7 basic rights of the child, which are to be cared for, right to protection, right to participation, right to freedom of expression, education and play, life, health and development, and rehabilitation. These banners were later translated into illustrations for the books, for the book on children's rights. And let's remember, this is in 2016. So Rodrigo Duterte was just elected, and human rights is really an important issue that we had to deal with. So in this spread, illustrated by Robert Alejandro, we show that we wanted to say that no matter, as long as you're a child from any part of the Philippines, whether you are abled or differently abled, you have rights. And you have the right to be cared for by your government and your family and your community. We also wanted to recognize that a lot of children grow up with parents who are OFWs. So you have the right to be cared for, even by guardians that are not your family members. So this is what we wanted to show on this spread. And the drugs was also users and was also an issue at that time, but up to today. And we wanted to show that children have the right to be protected from these. So this was illustrated by Josa Nada. So as you can see with the illustrations, some are quite abstract, but you can still see and feel the message of the story. In this spread, you wanted another issue that was apparent at that time was lowering of the age of criminality. So we asked Beth to illustrate that this right for children to be protected. And she wanted to show how ridiculous it is to put a tiny bird inside the cage. Children should be protected, and that's a responsibility of adults and should not be put on the child. In this one, we wanted to say that children have the right to get the right information. So we made an activity to make the children think. And so it's a playful way for them to find out for themselves or to ask and research which of these are right or true or false. So part of the book was a mural that we made as a team. So for several weekends, we went to Canvas and painted the mural. And when we launched the book, this was exhibited with the other artworks from the book, and it was turned over to the Commission on Human Rights for display. But right now it's already with Canvas again. So that mural we turned into the cover of the book. And since then, it has been given away to different communities. It was also exhibited at the UN headquarters in New York and also in Geneva. Another project we had with Canvas just right before the pandemic was this book on climate change, because it is one of the most pressing and difficult challenges that children will have to face today. So it explains through graphics and illustrations how climate change has been going on for years and years, even before our time. But what's different now is that it's caused by humans. It's man-made, unlike before. So this book tells us how children can help to fight climate change so that they don't feel helpless also, so they know they can be part of the solution. And that it's their responsibility to take care of Mother Earth. So this is ink right before the pandemic. I think this was the last time we met. So this was at Canvas when we first brainstormed about the book. And related to the pandemic, of course, we had to illustrate books that address the pandemic. So these are books released by Canvas last year. This was illustrated by Pergy, and this one by Jamie Bauza. So it's important for children to understand what's going on around them and to see that they are not alone in what they're going through. And finally, this is recent events are reminding us how much more important our work is as illustrators, as storytellers. Oops. So I'll end with this illustration by Serge Bumatay to inspire all of us to continue the work. Thank you.
Thank you, Liza. Looking back at how ink started, as shown in your presentation, and how it actually looked like at that time, moving on to samplings of distinct and very relevant children's books created by illustrators from Ang Ink. somehow make me feel good and proud at the same time. So salamat sa presentation, Liza.
Salamat.
Our next speaker is Fran Alvarez. Fran joined Inc. in 2011 and is an illustrator and graphic designer whose works are mostly inspired by nature, pop culture, childhood memories, and daily life. Some of her books include Hating Kapatid, the 2014 National Children's Book Award recipient, Sayaw na Mga Kamay, shortlisted for the Bologna Children's Book Fair 2021 exhibition, and included in the 2021 Sharjah Children's Reading Festival exhibit, and An Eagle's Feather, which figured in the list for the Green Earth Book Awards. She's currently part of Studio Dialogo, a boutique graphic design studio based in Quezon City. Fran?
Oh, thank you, sir. So let me share my screen. Hello. Okay. Can you see my screen? Okay. So hello.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So hello. Um, thank you, Sir Totet, for the intro. So before all of that, this is me. So like a lot of illustrators, I started um, with drawings that reflect my own experiences and my stories and my interests. So here, like this one, my mother, who is a dentist, would give me free dental checkups in her kitchen. And other things that I'm interested in. So like nature, stuff I miss doing, especially when the pandemic hit, stuff that I would want to do but can't. So and the like natural the process that uh, happened was I would make work and then I would share them with others, and I did that through joining competitions or posting my work online, and also by joining ang Ilustrador ng Kabataan in 2011. So joining Inc. was very important for me as a picture book illustrator because I learned how to make drawings for professional use by joining the org. So how to make books for publication, how to make drawings for publication, and also even though I hadn't been published yet earlier in the earlier years, I was able to get my work out there through the different catalogs that we put out and through the exhibits that we hosted. So here are some of the big exhibits that we put up before. Our 20th, 25th, and 30th anniversary shows. So in Ayala Museum and currently at the Ateneo Art Gallery. So what I learned from that process of from me sharing my work to others was that whenever I shared something like personal, people saw that as an opportunity for collaboration. So whether it was because we shared the same interests or we cared about the same things or the same topics, or maybe because the work that I did, the style or the tone of my work resonated with what they wanted to say or what they wanted to write books about. So picture books are very collaborative in the sense that there's always two stories in a book. So one, there's the story that you can read through the text, and the second is the story that you can see in the picture. So personally, as a picture book illustrator, it's very important that I'm able to contribute greatly to that subtext, to that second layer of story happening in the pictures instead of just literally drawing what's written in the text. So a timely reminder that I got from a recent masterclass I attended during the AFCC was that pictures affect how a book is read. So I agree 100%. Um, Even if you give the same story to different illustrators, it's going to be different every time because of the nuances and the personal um, touches of the illustrators that's going to appear in the final execution. So in that sense, parang I think na contrary to the perception of people that picture books are just like cutie cutie, happy all the time. Picture books are also very important and accessible venues for us to talk to children about bigger topics or heavier topics that uh, that are also happening around them. So today, I'm going to share with you some of the books that I've worked on that are kind of along those lines. So the first book I'm going to talk about is An Eagle's Feather. So this is literally and figuratively my biggest book project to date. It's about a Philippine eagle who gets shot in the wild, and some locals rescue it and bring it to the Philippine Eagle Center for rehabilitation, and eventually gets released back to the wild. So this is a project uh, by the Cornell Lab of Ornithology in New York and the Philippine Eagle Foundation in Davao. So I was an intern at Cornell at the time, so this was my main project. So why is it so big? Let's talk about it. Here's the before and after. So it's big because this book is used by the educators of the Philippine Eagle Foundation. They would bring this book to the eagle communities in the mountains where they had no projectors and computers. So they would do storytelling to the kids and the parents there, and talk more about how to protect the communities while they're living there, and also like for the sake of the Philippine eagle. So before, they had this very like big book that they mounted on illustration board, and it was very heavy, so they would like bring that to the mountain. So here's the book after. So it's still big, but my main project was to help redesign the book, from finalizing the manuscript to making the illustrations to having it printed on better material. So it's lighter and even has its own carrying bag. So I think up to now they still use it. So before that, since I'm like an illustrator I'm not like I'm not someone who works in the field. It's very important to me that they gave me the opportunity to research in Davao. So they sent me on a research trip to the Philippine Eagle Center where I got to meet the eagles. So parang medyo life-changing experience kasi they're really majestic birds when you see them in person. So this is one of the birds there. So si Fighter, he's injured, so he can't fly high anymore. So he's just like there in an open area. So I got to take a lot of reference photos. Got to do some sketching, and they even let me tag along other like conservation activities. Like here in the middle, we went up the mountain where they were tracking the eagles that they released in the wild. So the eagles had tags on their feet. So like we would wave the antenna in the air and like listen for sounds that would indicate if the eagle's doing well, or if it's injured, or if it's far away, something like that. So and before I left, they let me feed the eagles in the enclosure. So talagang so very informative and like unforgettable experience. And then the next part of my project, I flew to Ithaca in New York to actually make the book na. So this is the Cornell Lab of Ornithology. They have lots of resources for conservation and birds. So I worked with the multimedia department because they were the ones who were handling the Philippine Eagle project. So they were making a documentary at the time, other information videos. So I was able to help out with that also. So it's not just like illustrations. I help translate stuff. I help make the manuscript read more for a picture book format. Tapos I even had a cameo in a documentary. So like a lot of things going on. So it's a rare opportunity for an illustrator to be like kind of immersed in that sense. So working with filmmakers also and not illustrators helped me kind of refine my storyboards more to make it like feel more cinematic, more dramatic. They would give input na parang this would maybe be better if the camera was on top, ganyan. Like depict the eagles flying. So here are my artworks. So they at the time I worked mostly with watercolor and I had to make the artworks very big. So it was like really learning process for me to work on big artworks that time and to balance how to depict the eagle kind of realistically so the communities would recognize the bird when they saw the book, but also still approachable and not so scary because in some scenes the bird gets shot, so you kind of have to balance the impact in the how the child will perceive that. So here are some spreads, and of course we had to insert and feature in the scenes like why is the Philippine eagle having problems like staying alive and breeding. So what are the issues surrounding that community-wise? Like what is the role of the corporations? What is the government doing, etc. So that's for the big book. So initially, the project was only to make that big book, that one piece of big book for the teachers. But the Cornell lab eventually decided to publish a smaller version for sale. So, and part of the proceeds would be donated to the Philippine Eagle Foundation also. So super happy that we got a follow up to the project. So, and that to see our work have that kind of parang nanganganak yung impact niya, parang super big deal for us. So here in the last pages, we have more info about the eagles and the conservation efforts ongoing. So even up to now, sometimes they would still email me updates na, oh, we're making animations from your drawings. Oh, this is like what's happening. Can we get in touch with you if we need more material for Eagle? So even if matagal nang natapos yung project, happy pa rin ako na it's still being used and relevant pa rin siya. And for the next book, I wanted to talk briefly about something a bit more recent. So Sayaw ng Mga Kamay, published by Adarna House in 2020, just before the pandemic. So it's a story about friendship of two girls. So si Mai and Sam, and Mai is disabled, and throughout the book, she teaches her friend how to sign language. This is also a special book because, contrary to my usual process of making my books alone at home, I got to make this book in a workshop surrounded by friends 24/7 for a week. So we made this book for Room to Read's Kwentong Musmos Illustrators Workshop in 2019. Room to Read is a nonprofit organization that focuses on children's literacy. So we had mentors there who helped us go through all the initial steps of bookmaking, from the storyboards, character design, etc. And then after that week, we just continued our work. So here are some spreads from the book. So the book isn't really an instructional on sign language, but it focuses more on the narrative and then features Filipino sign language. So we had a lot of spreads that didn't have text, but showed like the sign and what it means. And then we had a glossary at the back. So this is kind of still a work in progress because we're working on an English version with the US publisher. So it's going, I'm bringing this book up again because we're going through a lot of fact checks and sensitivity reads and going back and forth to the illustrations and then checking that everything's okay and correct and consulting with experts. So as an illustrator, this is very important a very important process for me to go through, I think, because it's not my own experience, so you really have to get it right and get the research like really correct. Before I end, I want to kind of share some of the awards that our books have gotten through the years. And while awards can bring some form of validation to like who made it, kasi parang good job, impact, and like not everything is useless, some kind of feeling like that. More than that, I think these are awards are special because they're specifically Filipino stories. And I'm happy na among all the books that I've made, these are the ones that got recognition. So Hating Kapatid, which is like a very Pinoy concept. So An Eagle's Feather, which is about the Philippine eagle, and then Sayo ng Mga Kamay, which features Filipino sign language. So my takeaway from that is I'm happy that they're paying attention to Filipino stories. So from that small circle of me just sharing my personal interest to now being able to share our collaborative work to a wider audience is really special to me. So this is also very encouraging as an illustrator, as a reader, and like as part of the book making community to just keep on improving our skills and what we do and to keep on telling our stories and sharing them because stories that are shared are stories that stay and we will never run out of stories to tell. So thank you very much.
Salamat, Fran.
Thank you po.
From your talk, yung presentation, no, it just shows that boundless or limitless ang effects ng children's books. Boundless, limitless, hindi lang in terms of themes, but yung opportunity, as you said, yung it created opportunities for collaboration. The books, when viewed and read not only by children, but it attracts ages, beyond the youth. It not only opens up the minds of kids, but it also opens up a lot of avenues and opportunities for those who are also concerned about some relevant issues and they'd like to speak out also, and they're looking for ways to creatively present their concerns about issues all around us. So it just shows that boundless and limitless talaga ang books. And also one good thing that you presented is Filipino children's books are beginning to be recognized outside of the Philippines. So that's really good news. Matagal na dapat, pero siguro ngayon.
Fanatic.
Push na talaga, push.
Opo.
Okay, salamat, Fran.
Thank you po.
Okay, after Fran, last but not the least, our next speaker is Aldi Aguirre. Aldi joined Ang Ink in 2008. Most of his works can be seen in children's books from different publishers and independent writers. He has been given awards and recognition for his works locally by the Philippine Board on Books for Young People, or PBBY, and the National Book Development Board, or NBDB, and also abroad by Ilustrarte in Castelo Branco, Portugal, and the Sharjah Exhibition for Children's Book Illustrations. His illustrations for the book Papuntang Community Pantry were recently chosen as finalists in the 2022 Bologna Children's Book Fair Illustrators Competition. And the book Sikian has been included in the White Ravens catalog by the International Youth Library in Munich, Germany. Aldi, go ahead.
Hi, sir. Thank you. Thank you, sir Totet. Hello, hello everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you for spending your afternoon with us. Sana hindi maulan dyan sa inyo. I'll be sharing my screen right now. Yeah. Hello, hello, hello. I'm Aldi. I'm an illustrator. So I'll start my presentation with how I started with illustrations. Ayan. So in 2007. And I think this is, I can consider this as one of my first parang ano siya, real illustration gig or job kasi I was paid and it was published. So it's like the first real thing for me as an illustrator, even though I'm not really sure on what I'm doing yet with in terms of my works on how it looks on the medium that I'll use. So so here, if you'll notice the themes or this publications are inclined are already inclined with children's welfare and children's rights. And but I just want also to emphasize that these projects were not like projects that was like handed over to me. I mean parang hindi siya biglang para sa akin talaga. I did it on my own because it was referred by someone. I was referred to the organization, and then the organization at that time was like looking for an illustrator to illustrate these primers and this printouts for this for these publications. So yun, I was referred. So even though I really wanted to have an illustration job, I was referred by someone. So hindi ko siya solong trabaho, hindi ko siya solong nakuha. I was referred. So yon, was one of those published illustrations, Iboy Gingging at ang Juvenile Justice and Welfare Act. And it's a primer for teachers and for adults. And these are on the left side these are the inside illustrations of some of these primers. This was back also in 2007, same year. And the other the other handbook naman on the right is working with children involved with armed conflict. So still dealing with children's rights and welfare. Ito naman, Behind the Mask, it's also a handbook. The illustration on top is not mine, of course. Obviously, it was Jason Moss illustration. So back at that time, siya talaga yung idol ko, one of my inspirations pagdating sa children's book illustration. So when I received the copy of this book, of this publication, natuwa ako kasi somehow associated na ako kay Jason, even though I was just like wala naman talaga association. So he did the cover. I did some illustration chapter illustrations inside this book. And fast forward tayo 2017. So 2007 yun, tapos next year, I joined Inc. because I really wanted to have a children's book published. So parang pangarap ko yun. Yung sister ko noon, I was dala ko sa kanya pag uwi ko, yung little sister ko, yung dala ko sa kanya mga local children's book. So lagi ko nakikita sa likod yung mga illustrators. Is a member of Ang Inc. So I was really wanting to join Ang Inc. because I thought back then that if you're a member of the organization, automatic na meron kang children's book published. So, nalungkot ako kasi hindi pala ganoon. So, nalungkot ako na hindi pala automatic yon. But when I joined Ang Inc., it was really, really an overwhelming and really, parang yung nasabi ko ng orientation namin when the speakers are like talking, like Robert Alejandro, Victor Rocha, and other haligi ng industriya. Lagi ang nasa isip ko parang bakit ngayon lang ako sumali dito? So parang late bloomer ako dun sa larangan na yun. I was really parang naghihinayang that I didn't join early. But yun, like I've mentioned, it's not really automatic that you have a children's book published once you join an organization. It's an organization that has illustrators that caters or that illustrates books for children. But it still have to be your own own push for you to have a published work, for you to be noticed by publishers and all that. So yun. But I just want to emphasize as well na sobrang ang laking impact ng ginawa ng ink sa akin as a children's book illustrator. Kung wala yung ink, if I haven't joined ink, I think hindi wala ako dito. You will not see my works, you will not see my books, yun, wala. So ang ink is a big contribution to that part of me. Yan. Fast forward to 2017 with today's topic. I'll be sharing this book and this story that was published and posted in Facebook back in 2017. It's about Kian de los Santos. Kian de los Santos is one of the victims dun sa drug war that was performed by President Duterte's administration. So yung Oplan Tokhang, di ba? So si Kian was one of the victims and that was one of the youths, one of the children, one of the youths that was killed by cops during that drug war campaign. Yeah. Kian de los Santos, he was murdered in August 2017. This illustration here that you're seeing is the cover for the published version of the book. So it was published by Adarna House. This project is under Philippine Center for Investigative Journalism, or PCIJ. At that time they were looking for alternative ways of telling current events. Hindi lang siya parang straight up journalism, straight up news telling. So they were finding ways and collaborating with other artists and creatives on how to present this current events, and aside from straight up journalistic or news storytelling. So this is the first of those PCIG story projects, Kian. What happened was sobrang fresh pa nung nangyari. August 16, 2017 nangyari yung pagpatay kay Kian, and then weeks or days after, I was contacted by Weng Cahiles. Weng, I worked with her before na sa maraming ngalan ni Emilio's book sa under Adarna. So she was familiar with my work. She was familiar with my style and all that. Tapos she asked me if I wanted to like illustrate for this si Kian. At that time, sobrang sa story na to. Sobrang talagang alam mo yung frustrated at that time that alam mo yung nangyayaring ganito, that bakit ganun, parang wala akong magawa. So parang naghahanap ko ng ways. You're parang mixed emotions na because you're frustrated on what's happening. Parang ano bang magagawa ko? And then this opportunity came. So syempre ako, I grabbed it right away na yes, gusto ko. So yung time na yon, they attended the wake of Kian de los Santos, yung Weng and Kim de la Cruz. She was under PCIJ. Siya yung researcher and also the one who provided the photos. So yun, nasa wake pa. So imagine niyo nasa wake pa. So sobrang fresh pa ng story. So we were formulating the story or what will be the story and the illustrations for this book. Habang hindi pa tapos nangyayari because there was an urgency to release the story para fresh pa sa mga tao. And this was the published cover for that book. Ito naman si Kian, ito ang nakikita niyo sa screen is the first cover for the online version. Kasi ang initial para malabas agad is through Facebook. Para malabas agad yung story agad-agad. So parang August nangyari, then parang September next month nilabas na sa Facebook. So imagine August 17 then September, less than a month to do the story and the illustrations. So yun, less than a month because of the urgency to release the story. The story behind this cover is the original plot of the story was for it to revolve around the idea that Kian de los Santos' dream was only to have his own bike, para lang magkaroon siya ng own bisikleta. Nandun din sa story, it was included that he requested a bike for him to buy his own bike sa nanay niya, which whom is working abroad sa Middle East. So OFW yung nanay niya. He was requesting for his own bike kasi papasok sa school. Yung mga kaklase niya may sariling bike, motorcycle. Siya gusto rin niya magkaroon ng bike. So imagine that na si Kian is one of us, or not me kasi hindi na naman ako ganun kabata. So one of you or one of our children or one of our neighbors, one of our friends na ganun kabata at sobrang babaw na, hindi sobrang like simple ng ano lang niya, ng dream niya, magka-bike ng time na yan. So yon, that's the story behind this cover. Kaya yung yan, mayroon siya nakabike siya, then yung shadow ng bike, yan, yung merong gun as a silhouette. Yan. Part of truth telling as a storyteller or as an illustrator, especially if your themes or story or nonfiction are based from real life and involves real people from real communities, is to be like to be honest or to be maging tapat ka dun sa references or sa mismong pinagkukuhaan ng istorya. So Kim De La Cruz supply me with the photographs kasi nga nandun siya sa community. There were Weng and her was attended the wake, tapos meron siya mga pictures habang yung mga neighbors kasi they were conducting interviews. And so sa right portion of course is the photo from the neighborhood, and sa right side is my illustration for that. If you'll notice, when I mentioned na you should be true to the reference, hindi naman siya parang wala naman rule na sobrang dapat eksaktong ganun yung gawin yung, because if that's the case, then sana photograph na lang din yung in-include sa di ba? Photos na lang in-include dun sa book, sa story, hindi na lang like illustrations, kasi if that's gonna be exactly the same with the photographs, then what's the point? And also, it's as an illustrator, you should be like telling it the way you see it and having a piece of you on your illustrations all the time. Yeah. Ito yung iconic and very, very, very popular na CCTV footage during that Kian De Los Santos murder, where the two cops were dragging him dun sa Esquinita Park. Ito yung sa left side yung footage, tapos sa right side yung illustration kung how I depicted it. Of course, but nandun pa rin recognizable yung black na hoodie, tapos white na cap ng isang police, tapos him in the middle of those two cops. Then dito sa right side, pinakita ko ulit sa shadow na yung mangyayari during this time, minutes or seconds after this footage, na he was gunned down, Kian was gunned down by the police or by the cops, and then nakita siya sa murder scene na naka-fetal position. So yun yung nakikita niyo dito sa shadow. And the next spreads, ito magkatabi siya sa spread sa book, yung naka-fetal position si Kian. And then on the next page, I wanted to show the same position that her mom was when she was requesting or begging for her employer sa Middle East na pauwiin siya to attend Kian's wake. Okay, so yun. Gusto ko lang ipakita yan to create para alam niyo yun, because during working, while working on these illustrations, you have emotions building up, especially if you're really attached or you have emotional investment dun sa story na ginagawa mo. So that's my way of like letting it out and parang showing showing a more creative way of what happened or transpired during this story. And also para alam niyo yun, although I never not sure if, syempre hindi ko naman alam kung ganito yung nangyaring nag-bow down ba siya, but this was my like take on how she requested and how they were on that same position when that happened. Yeah. And this is one of the spreads din sa book. Babasahin ko lang yung text dito sa page na to or sa spread na to. Tama na po, may test pa ako bukas. Tapos ang sagot ng pulis sa kanya, ito ang baril, iputok mo tapos tumakbo ka. So yun, in this page, I don't really want to show what happened na yung police sinasabi na there were like an exchange of conversation between Kian and the cops, but I just want to show this illustration. to create drama, to create like para mapag-isip yung mga viewers din on what happened there, and also to focus on the text. Kasi in a book, of course, as we all know, it is a partnership of the text and the illustration. So kung nandun na sa text na sapat na yung sinasabi ng text, you really don't need to mirror it dun sa illustration mo. So yun yung parang maganda sa book illustration. What the text doesn't show something else in the illustration. So yan. Yan. This book with the help of Adarna House, then it was included in the White Ravens catalog sa Munich, Germany. Also it won the 2018 ano yun? 2018 Best Reads for Children. Ayan, yan. Best Reads for Children. Ayan. And also, ano rin, nakaka-proud din to kasi Adarna was not really selling it, the book, for you to have a copy. So you just need to donate a certain amount, 150, and the proceeds will go to the RCB, nakalagay dito, RCBK, EJK, Children's Scholarship Fund, dun sa mga family na victims ng EJK. So, di ba, nakaka-proud siya na parang hindi siya pinagkakitaan and all that. And also, medyo marayo yung narating na si Kian. Weng and I went to AFCC 1 year, and then we presented this as well. So, yung mga tao, parang meron, naalala ko nun yung one of those, sa Singapore AFCC, one of the attendees, like, sa sobrang touch siya sa story, nagbigay siya ng cash sa amin na pakiabot na, of course, taga dun siya, for instructing us to give the money to the family of Kian. So sa amin namin, wag na po. Of course, English na. No thanks. Pero yeah, she insisted na bigyan yung cash. Tapos yun, di ba, nakaka-touch. So parang siya, these recognitions, like Fran mentioned earlier, is a way of like parang siyang broadening the audience of what you're doing, na hindi lang siya sa atin nga I'm really sure parang 99.9% nakalimutan na ng karamihan yung nangyari dito sa istoryang to. So it's a good thing na nandoon na sa Facebook na meron printed copies, because one day, sobrang years will pass na talagang wala na sa isip na natin na nangyari that this happened, that a kid that was like dreaming to have his own bike was murdered under this senseless and parang ang daming loopholes na drug war. Yan. So yan. Let's go to the next book. And at 2020, kasabay ito nung book ni Fran, which was yung Sayaw ng Mga Kamay. Paboritong Lugar ni Nanay. Also written by Weng Cahiles. I just want to include this because going from a non-fiction story, punta tayo sa parang fiction naman. So hindi ibig sabihin na you're telling truths, dapat non-fiction siya. So you can also tell fictions or stories that are not based from real life, but still telling a certain truth na meron kang gusto mong mabasa ng ibang tao. Yan. Paboritong Lugar ni Nanay is about a mom's mom and her son's bonding when his mom telling the stories of those places, of her favorite places before, like the trees that she climbs with her friends, when she runs the fields, tapos may mga amor seko na dumidikit sa dress niya, yung mga salagubang na hinuhuli nila. Ako personally, naabutan ko yung salagubang era nito nung bata ako, pero ngayon siguro kasi I'm not really looking for salagubang, pero I'm not really sure if children are still playing with these insects na kahit na medyo siya violent kasi lalagay mo ng bubble gum tapos mag-wrestling sila sa likod. But yun, those are the events or the stories that happen during this mother and child conversation. So there were, and those places are already gone kasi nga sa continuous urban development dito sa cities na yung mga lugar na yun, the vast field, yung mga puno, nawawala because pinapalitan ng mga bahay, pinapalitan ng mga buildings and all that. So, ang pinakang gusto kong linya dito sa book na to, something like this, tinanong nung bata yung nanay, the boy asked the mom, can we go there to those places that you mentioned sa story mo? Then yung nanay sabi, sorry, pero hindi ko na alam kung paano pumunta doon. So, parang ang ganda nung linya yun na parang either wala na kasi yung lugar na yun dahil nga dun sa continuous urban development, dun sa mga lugar na yun. And also, siguro sa dami na, sa haba ng pinagdaanan ng nanay, hardships, mahirap ang buhay, they live in this community. Wala nang lugar para sa memory niya or para isipin niya kung paano bumalik din sa lugar na yun kahit na existing pa yun. Sa dinabi namin nadaanan nila sa hirap ng buhay. So yun, I just wanted to include this book kasi ganda rin ito. It also tackles about certain truth that some of the children might not be experiencing or might not be aware that it's happening. So yun. Yeah. So it's 2021 meron din like an organization that I work with. This haven't been released yet, pero balak nila is a compilation of the stories, real life stories then of people that are affected by China's Belt and Road Initiative sa Asian countries. So merong in-interview someone from saan yung kodigo ko? Meron in-interview someone from the Dumagat Remontado indigenous people's tribe in Rizal and Quezon. So they told the story na how they're being affected dun sa Kaliwa Dam construction and paano pa sila maaapektuhan. And so it's about a mother's struggle at the same time fighting for their rights for their ancestral lands kasi they will be displaced. 1,000 plus families will be displaced if this Kaliwa Dam project will be continued. Part of truth-telling when you're a storyteller, where you're an illustrator, again, if it's nonfiction and it's based from real life, is yun nga, being true to the references, the interviews from actual people that belong to that community. So this illustration here is like I consulted it with her, the contact dun sa IP group na yun, na is it okay to include this? Is parang ritual nila to, pagbibigay salamat sa magandang ani and all that. And she approved. Kasi especially pag ganito may involved na group that we're not really familiar. Hindi parang ka dun, you're the one who is like bisita dun sa story na yun o sa lugar na yun. So you should be sensitive with all those things na kailangan mong i-include dun sa story. Kung allowed ba to, kung ganito ba talaga yung ginagawa nyo. Yeah, last book is 2022's Papuntang Community Pantry that was mentioned a while ago dun sa intro ni Sir Totet. And Papuntang Community Pantry. Sobrang gaya nung si Kian, I was also attached to this story kasi yung time na yun sobrang nagalingan ako dun sa sobrang lala, sobrang galing, amazing yung nangyari, especially when in the time of that everyone is like struggling to survive during the lockdowns, during the corona or this pandemic. Meron lumitaw na magandang bagay, which is the community pantries by Patrengnon. Kaya meron reference photo dito kasi binigyan ko siya ng parang dedicated page dun sa book. Ganyan siya, tapos yung the protagonist of the story brought some fruits, some vegetables na kinuha niya her neighbor gave to her to contribute to the community pantry. So yeah. And again, as was mentioned before, this was like included in this year's Bologna Children's Book Fair as a finalist. Hanggang finalist lang talaga. Yan. So again, I would want to mention that these competitions are proactive na sumasali sa competitions, not because I want to, of course I want to win, but also a big part of that that is for these stories to be seen by other people around the world. Hindi na dapat ako sasali this year, but Ang Ink, one of my friends from Ang Ink, si Pergy, told me to join na hindi naman talaga niya in-insist kasi wala akong bagong gawa eh. So she mentioned why don't I like enter these illustrations that I already have. So this is the newest book that I have back then. So ito yung pinasok ko, and luckily it was chosen as one of the finalists. So these are the illustrations. Sorry to extend. These are the illustrations that I made, that I entered the competition and that was chosen as a finalist. Ayan. Ayan, nakita yung pila. And also, if you notice in these illustrations, I wanted to include some Filipino themed elements like yung trike, like yung fishbowl cart, yeah, like yung bicycle, like yung mga jeepney. Yan. Conscious ako na gusto kong pakita yon because like I mentioned before sa ibang talk, a published book or children's book is like one way of preserving our history and our culture. So one day, ma-phase out tong jeepneys na to, for example, hindi natin makikita, but through this publications or through this printed materials, makikita natin that this existed before, na wala na sa future, and that we can tell our future generations. And I also want to share artworks that I made to voice out what I want to voice aside from the publication, kasi hindi naman laging meron kang book projects or projects that you'll be hard to do, di ba? Dito sa mga na-mention ko. So you can do artworks. I do artworks for that. This is for a radical exhibit for BP Lenny's campaign. These artworks are like joined in fairs, Art in the Park. This is one of my piece para dun sa nangyayari sa Ukraine. The shirt of the children resembles the flag of Ukraine dito. So yan. Ito naman, na-inspire ako dun sa mga sobrang daming nagrarally dun sa campaign ni BP Lenny. So as you can see, meron dyan, nakatuwa ako dun sa character niya si Buyas. So yan, nandyan siya. Yan. Last piece for this presentation, sorry if I nag-extend ako sa time, is this piece. Maganda lang kasi it formed the Philippine flag, if you can see it. So ito yung very hopeful dun sa election na nangyari. So this was one of my artworks during those times. Okay. Salamat marami. Thank you very much.
Salamat, Aldi. Thank you. One thing is very clear do sa presentation ni Aldi. It's very clear that the children's book is really a creative reflection of what is happening around us. Through the children's books, the Filipino can see oneself as part of a basic community, such as a family, or even on a larger scale, part of the national community. And on a lighter note, kasi Aldi started with this presentation saying that kung walang ink, walang Aldi.
Snacks.
may hugot ang ink doon, may addendum. Kung walang ink, sabi mo, walang Aldi na illustrator, di ba? Pero para sa akin, para sa grupo ng ink, kung walang mga tulad nyo na illustrator at yung mga works nyo, hindi mapapatuloy ang pagpapatunay ng ink na ang mga illustrator ng kabataan ay dapat ipagmalaki, hindi lang dito, kundi sa buong mundo.
Aww.
Okay. Salamat sa tatlong presenters, mga nagsalita. Marami ng comments. There are quite a number of comments and questions, but let me start the ball rolling with a question of mine. I guess medyo nadaanan rin, especially with Aldi. Pero my question is, in the books that you have illustrated, not only those who have been cited or awarded locally or internationally. How do you see accuracy, or how do you address truthfulness in line with approaching the story in an interesting and creative manner? May mga dagdag ba ako? Do you consciously or unconsciously work on parameters to temper yourself, or to make sure that you don't go overboard in terms of the visuals and the use of style? Does the dynamics between you and the writer help foster the bond between creative and truthful visual storytelling? Idadagdag ko doon, merong question sa chat. This comes from Lindsay Almonte. Thank you, Lindsay. And you wrote here, thank you for the talks. They're all very inspiring, as I'd like to get in the book illustration industry. I am also reminded of the recent school shooting in Texas. I just want to ask, where is the line between being truthful and putting quote-unquote drama? And when is an illustration quote-unquote too much for children when it comes to heavy topics? So magkaugnay yung tanong ko tsaka yung komento at tanong ni Lindsay. O kaya kung maaring masagot nyo, bawat isa sa inyo. So
Sige.
the truthfulness, addressing accuracy, addressing truthfulness in line with creating interesting and creative visuals. Game.
Game. Sige, ako mauna. I think first, very important to know how old the audience is,
Okay.
and how the material will be presented. So, kunyari yung kay Aldi, naalala ko yung kay Kian, alam ko sa Facebook siya unang lumabas. So, I think yun, consciously alam mo na lalabas siya without, na hindi mo makakontrol kung sino yung makakita sa kanya. So, pag ganun, I think very careful ka dapat dun sa images na pinapakita mo, na kahit na, kasi hindi mo makokontrol ka kung sino makakita. Some books like Lihim ni Leia, which is published by Adarna, about child molestation, child abuse. Ayun, it was designed to be used for therapy, so controlled yung use of the book. It is supposed to be used by with a guardian or a parent or a therapist. So parang I think as illustrators, you should be conscious about that, so you know what type of images you can include, and what you can you're not supposed to put. So I think challenge din yun for the illustrator to be creative on how to depict certain topics. Minsan dumadating yung kailangan mo maging mas abstract or symbolic yung gamit ng images. Hindi literal na yung kunyari shooting, papakita ka ng barel. Or kunyari sa akin may kwento ako ni Lola Basyang na yung isang scene, pupugutan ng ulo yung isang character. So yung ginawa kong solution, kinat ko siya sa page na lang. So yung head nung pinugutan ng ulo nasa labas na nung page. So implied lang na pinugutan siya without showing blood and dismembered body parts. So I think walang topic na taboo for children's books. It's really how you show it.
Okay. Fran, ikaw. Fran?
Sa akin, in my hello?
Yes, go ahead.
Sa akin po in my experience, important yung research part. Lalo na if hindi ka naman, like, kunwari as illustrators, hindi ka naman i-hire specifically lang para sa kung saan ka lang currently maalam. So, kung makuha ka to work on a project na interested ka pero hindi ka naman like expert, important na mag-research. And like in my experience working on and Can We Live Without Trees, maraming back and forth with pagpapacheck ng work sa mga scientists and yung mga meron talagang like expertise about the topic. So yun yung parang nakita kong very important when depicting like things that children can see in real life, or particularly yung eagle's feather. Parang yung birds kailangan makilala, yun yung isang note, kailangan makilala nila. So like yung tao or yung trees, whatever, pero yung bird kailangan pag tinuro nila doon sa community gamit yung book, kailangan ma-recognize nila. So yung mga ganong little things. Tapos yun, parang sabi din ni Liza na powerful din yung effect sa reader nung mga implied na parts sa children's book. So matalino naman din yung mga bata, and pag nagbabasa sila, lalo na pag sensitive topics, tas meron silang guardian or teacher or parent na kasama, parang dun yung pwedeng venue for them to talk about it more, yung mga ganong scenes na may implication. So, yun nga, lalo na yung mga sensitive topics. Ayun, yun yung aking naisip about.
Aldi, may
So, yun.
madadagdag ka. Aldi.
Tama, I agree with Fran. Yung especially dun sa part na if you're not really familiar with if there's a community that's involved in the story, kung talagang based on from real life, kailangan talagang meron kang reliable source from kung hindi man directly a person that belongs to that particular community or nakakaalam, basta yung mga reliable person, kasi kung hindi, parang you're not really telling the truth as it is, na parang manghuhula ka na lang, na mag-Google search ka na lang kasi sa Google naman hindi mo alam kung tama yung you're not really sure if it's the correct resources or correct reference na dapat ma-include sa story mo and all that. So it's really, really important, especially if it's based from real life and actual group of people are involved. And also, hindi ko rin po magets yung yung medyo siguro kailangan yung putting drama ba? Hindi ko magets kung line between being truthful and create and putting drama. Kasi if you're not truthful, if you're not like yung truthful na part, kailangan para maging truthful, based talaga siya dapat sa facts. Wala nang ibang way. Talagang based siya sa facts dapat. So hindi ka pwedeng kumuha lang sa hangin na ito yung ilalagay ko dito. But it should be 100% based from facts. Pero yung creating drama, I think dun po yung sa illustrations kasi, like what I mentioned earlier, yung meron lang splat ng blood dun sa scene na yung si Kian. Yung text kasi and illustrations are working hand in hand. So if you already have the text na yun yung sinasabi na kailangan malaman, that yung illustrations mo, you can like add drama. So kung yun yung drama na sinasabi, it's more of, ayokong sabihin na drama, but more of an emotional input to add that element, kung ano yung gusto mong, kung ano yung nafe-feel ko, kung ano yung gusto mong ma-feel ng readers, pwede ka mag-add dun sa illustration. Kasi nandun naman yung text to accompany it. Wag lang sobrang layo talaga na parang, saan galing to? Hindi naman, wala naman pinagugutan. Parang ganun.
Or
Diba
perhaps even, sorry. Sige, Liza, go ahead.
Nalala ko, di ba sa art, kasi may mga tinatawag na art na para lang mag-shock.
Mm-hmm.
I think hindi yun place for children's books.
Yeah.
So I think importante talaga yung storytelling. So kung yung drama nakakatulong sa pag-tell ng story,
Yeah.
ayun, I think okay siya.
I guess if I may add, one thing that makes our role as, well, I speak for myself also. Our role as a children's book illustrator or a visual storyteller is one thing. Our advantage is we go through a process, and we're not doing this just by ourselves. Actually, the book is a team effort.
Collaborative.
You're not there mainly as illustrator lamang. Your contribution is part of the contribution of the writer, the input of the publisher, and even at times you present it to the target audience before you even finalize it. So yung proseso, yung research, yung klarong alam at pagtutok sa target audience, the dynamics between the illustrator, the publisher, and yourself. And also it mentioned yung power ng implied images. Kasi yan yung approach natin. And nothing is, sometimes it's better than an in-your-face representation of the story or the aspect. I guess these are advantages that make us more parang it leads us to the path of truthful storytelling. And most of all, we cannot underestimate the child to comprehend, to understand, and to put oneself in that situation pag nagbabasa siya ng book. So I think these are things that are part of our process that makes truth-telling, as I summarized each one's input, that makes us parang we are led to that direction right from the start. I'm not saying that everything's perfect, but mas natutok tayo right from the start because of these things. Yun. Okay. There are a lot of comments. Let me just read through some of the comments, and there are still questions. Medyo marami-rami sila, medyo nakakataranta dahil bigla silang dumami. At saka may mga fans, si Aldi. Okay.
Hindi ba mga yung nanay ko po yun? Ay,
Okay.
Hello po.
Allow me to read them. I'm glad to have books and illustrations tackling different topics. Wonderful way of translating facts and experiences into images. Oh, ito, hello daw. Mami ni Aldi. Ako rin ang magulang ni Aldi, proud na proud ako. Pample Pie Books, hoping for a reprint of book si Kian. Care is needed in creating the books and stories that will be consumed by the public. Amazing how a children's book can reach and resonate with so many people and not only children. Oh, there's a question here. Is Mama's house and Papa's house about divorce? I think that was can you
Yes.
reinforce?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, okay. And there's wait. Nasagot ko na din yung kay Lindsay.
How to join E? Yung isang tanong.
Wait. Ito mami ako natatanong to, medyo end question.
Passive.
There is an input from Cora. Hello, Cora. Important din ang publisher's input on sensitive topics. Yes, definitely. The dynamics amongst the publisher, writer, and illustrator, even interaction with the target audience is very important. Let's see some more. Please give advice on how to start children's illustration journey in the Philippines. When will Inc. accept applications or membership again? Mamaya si Liza mag-input doon. Applications. This is, okay. From Ana Maria Margarita Salvador. This information is very rampant in our country now and in the past 6 years. Does Inc. as an organization have plans of becoming even more active beyond individual artists' efforts in fighting the spread of disinformation? Ang ganda kasing masilmulan ito with children. Okay, guys. What can you
I
say?
think we have to, but we haven't regrouped yet. I think.
The limitations you took.
Actually, we haven't met since 2020. I think March or February 2020 as na physically. So yon. Pero I think very important nga yung role ng IC. So sinasabi ko na we have to. So we will.
Saka tingin ko rin na ano naman parang somehow nakapag-start na ang Inc. as a group to tackle these issues like yung, di ba, meron book that we work with Canvas, yung mga na-mention kanina ni Liza, like about children's rights, yung dapat, ano pa ba yung mga heavy topic, yung disinformation, climate change, and all that. So as a group, medyo active. Sobrang nakaka-proud niya yung Anki kasi hindi na siya parang nakatahimik lang na isang tabi na parang bata lang kami. Pero we're getting really involved on this themes that needs to be voiced out for children, especially specifically.
Okay.
Yeah, listening to everyone, no, it was very interesting to hear na there really are very a lot of points of view that go into the book, from the illustrator to the author. I'm a sectoral representative for booksellers, no? So I think that as a bookseller also, no, we'd like to see more of the illustrators in the stores, maybe. No, that I think that's something that's lacking in terms of our interaction. No, parang it's always the illustrator and the publisher. And I think that, you know, we can help the illustrators, and not just the publishers, but, you know, for the people to know the illustrators too, no?
Yeah. So, lalo na pag nakikita na si Aldi dun sa bookstore.
Yes.
Aldi din naman. Sorry, Aldi.
So I think yung book talks, hindi lang naman with the author, but I think also with the illustrators would be very interesting, no? For children and even for adults to hear how the books are created.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And with the visuals, there during the talk,
Yes.
you see visuals vis-a-vis the book and kwento about the process and things like that. So mas mabavalue pa ng mga kids and that
Yes,
readers
definitely.
yung ganito pala. Kasi let's face it, hindi aware ang maraming tao of the process involved. Kasi nakikita lang yung finished product na masalimuot pala yung proseso na dinadaanan nito. Even the aspect of research, it's not the bookish kind of a research, but it's actually, sometimes you have to, immerse yourself into that environment. And sometimes there are even topics na you can't even go there because of the peace and order situation. So how do you do research so to make your illustration very credible and very real and very effective and creative at the same time? So yung challenges, maganda nga yun yung challenges, marinig diretso mula sa mga illustrator and make people aware that the process is there, and it's also parang a gelling of forces between the writer, nagvo-vault in yung writer, illustrator, and the publisher mismo. So yun, pag
Pag nakita na tayo.
Ready na.
Oo nga.
Okay, I might wait. I have to go through this medyo yeah.
Sige, well thought while you are looking. Do you have a question na, or can I ask our illustrators?
Paula,
Okay.
yes.
I was wondering lang, in the making of illustrations, no, you go through this process. Are there times when you become stuck? And, what's the most difficult, why do you get stuck and how do you get unstuck?
We're all stuck right now.
Yes. Si Fran muna.
Fran.
Iba.
Well, sa akin, in my experience, minsan pag kunwari, mahirap yung topic, tapos ang dami mo nang nagawa. Minsan dun ako nasa-stuck na parang okay, parang that plus yung self-doubt na syempre kasi pag ang dami mo nang ginawa pero wala pa rin nagwo-work kunwari, or hindi mo pa rin makuha yung gusto mong effect, parang yun na yung oh my God, dapat ko ba itong ginagawa? Ano ba? So, ako ba dapat yung gumagawa? Parang mga ganon. So, meron siyang ganong like despair stage of bookmaking process. Tapos, sa akin, ang pinaka-helpful na technique ko is like to step away project for a bit. So, gagawa ka muna ng like hindi related dun sa book, or kakausap ka muna ng other people, or pwede kang humingi ng advice, ganon, or show it to other people para lang meron kang like fresh eyes to go back to what you've been doing. Tas mas parang mas may objective approach na pag binalikan mo after a while. Mahirap kasi pag children's book, medyo marathon siya, parang lalo na kung maikli yung deadline. So parang tuloy-tuloy ka lang, pagkatapos ng research, ayan na, sige, kailangan na mag-FA. So, useful na mag-step back konti para tignan, okay ba to, nag-work pa talaga. So pag hindi, babalikan mo na lang like, after a few days. So hindi siya nangyayari, like nagagawa all the time, pero useful siya pag nagagawa ko. So, yun yung isang para sa akin.
Gusto ko idagdag dun sabi ni Fran na marathon. I think for new illustrators, hindi nila na realize na yung pag gumagawa ng libro, para siyang nagmamount ng solo exhibit.
Yes.
Kasi ang isang libro ay normally 14 spreads plus
Yes.
cover. So parang 15 artworks yung kailangan mong gawin na tuloy-tuloy. So nakakapagod siya. so yun. So ako naman, pinaka nasa-stuck ako pag walang fresh idea, or kung yung idea ko for something nagawa ko na. So ito hindi ko alam kung paano nagagawa nila Beth na meron ng sobrang daming libro, o ni John Mike na sobrang daming libro.
Romil Kids.
Oo. So doon ako nasa-stuck talaga, no, kunyari yung scene, nag-uusap na dalawang tao. Tapos, paano ko i-drawing to? Ang dami ko nang na-drawing ng dalawang taong nag-uusap. So, parang minsan naisip mo na lahat ng angle. Ayaw ko kasi umuulit ng scene. So, yun. Doon ako pinaka-nahihirapan. So, usually yun, hinuhuli ko, hoping for inspiration to strike. Tapos, lumalapit na yung deadline, tapos kinakabahan ka lang. Pero tapos pag wala na talaga, pag ipit na talaga sa time, parang I just have to start to do something somewhere. So kahit hindi ko pa alam kung ano yung direction, pinipilit ko lang talaga yung sarili ko to draw, hoping na somehow everything will fall into place. And it usually does at the last minute. Pag deadline na bukas.
Kaya
Miracle of the deadline.
ako talagang hinihintay ko yung last minute bago ako gumawa. Pero dun sa question, na-stuck ako sir sa pinakang pag magi-start. Wala pa akong nagagawa, yun stuck na ako. Yun yung usual, yun yung madalas kong problema, yung mag-umpisa. As in talagang, ewan ko kung
Ako din.
gusto kong baliin, di ba? Gusto kong baliin yung ganung practice na ang tagal-tagal mo mag-umpisa, in deadline. Sige, next week na, malayo pa naman. Sige, kasi ayaw ko mag-umpisa, pero yun, doon talaga stuck. Siguro dahil, especially sa mga mahihirap na, or complicated, or yun yung gusto kong mga projects. Parang, siguro kasama sa pressure na, paano ko ba umpisahan, or ano ang umpisahan ko. Pero kahit na alam ko naman yung sagot dun sa paano ako ma-unstuck dun sa sitwasyon na yun, magsimula ka mag-drawing kahit ano, hindi ko pa rin siya ginagawa. Pero yun lang talaga yung solution dun parang mag-drawing ka ng kahit ano, mag-sketch ka, mag-doodle ka ng kahit ano. Kasi magkakaroon ng buhay sa sarili na parang, ito na yung gagawin mo. So tuloy-tuloy na yun, parang ganun. Pero yun talaga yung sa akin. Yung sa question, aside sa mong sinabi ni Fran at ni Liza, na na-experience ko rin lahat yun, ganun, lahat naman parang, siguro ganun yung collective na experiences ng mga illustrator. Yun, sa umpisa, yung paano mag-start. So ako na-stuck agad. Wala pang nagagawa, stuck na.
Hindi siya as parang glamorous na artist in the studio, tapos maayos lahat ng gamit, tapos picture ka. Parang sobrang layo nung nung realidad na hustle versus pag nandyan na yung book, tas parang, oh my God, totoo na siya.
Tsaka much of it is also getting out of your comfort zone. Yung parang, diba? Yung, ang hirap nun break yung yung comfort zone kailangan umalpas ka doon kahit pautay-utay. Yun.
Minsan rin pala sa akin yung challenging o yung kailangan ko hanapin kung ano yung interesting sa project para ma-excite ako.
Yeah. Oo.
Kasi, so, kunyari, minsan as simple as may bagong mga papel na gusto kong subukan. So, na-excite ako.
Naghahanap ka na lang ng ano.
Oo. Kasi minsan yung story, may story na pag binasa mo pa lang may images na pumapasok. Pag ganon madali, mag-umpisa. At least kahit isang image lang yun na-imagine mo, at least may starting point. Pero may times kasi na parang, ba't wala akong na-imagine? So maghahanap ka ng something interesting na pwede mong ilagay yung frame of mind mo to something interesting to excite you to do a project.
Okay.
Yan.
Let me read through some of the comments and may mga tanong din. From Ana Maria Margarita Salvador, sana dumami rin ang wordless picture books. Malaking tulong sa language development ng mga bata. Siguro Paula can, comment on that. Wordless picture books, PBBY. What can you
Oo
say?
nga eh. Yes, our wordless picture book, no? So, we are currently, no? I think the submissions are open for wordless picture books. So, if you are interested, we are waiting for your work. We really want to promote it. The funny thing is, siguro nga, it needs to be known more because sometimes we get crazy comments like after people open the books, bakit may kulang ba? Or parang,
yata.
oh, may nakalimutan yata. Parang walang text. Ganon. So, people are not used to wordless picture books. But, yun nga, it helps in language development and imagination. And it's very, very interesting storytelling. No? So, as an illustrator, have you ever wanted to tell your own story just through illustrations?
Of course.
Yes.
That's all of our
Oh.
dreams.
So let's go.
Oo.
Nakaka-pressure rin.
Tsaka yung even
Magsulat ng
just yung
sarili.
mga books na talagang very, very little text. Yung parang yung mga Dr. Seuss. Kaya ako, noon, tuwan-tuwa ako sa mga Dr. Seuss. Kasi parang iigsi ng mga nila, mga linya nila. Yeah, wordless books, definitely. We should promote that. And also, thank you for those who've been supporting us so that PBBY can continue the yearly competition for wordless books. So salamat sa mga tumutulong sa amin at tutulong pa. Okay. There is a question here from Yvette Fernandez. Probably pwedeng dagdagan. From Yvette, how much interaction should the illustrator have with the writer? And if I may add sa question ni Yvette, have you ever had experiences when your book wasn't viewed intentionally or unintentionally, your illustrations rather, weren't viewed by your author intentionally or unintentionally, and how did it come out? Anyone? So the question is, how much interaction should there be between the illustrator and the writer? And an addendum question for me is, have you had experiences wherein you had no interaction or hindi view ng writer intentionally or unintentionally? How did the book turn out? Liza, meron ka na ba experience na gano'n?
I think most of my books, hindi ko nakaka-interact yung writer.
Talaga?
Usually manuscript lang yung nakikita ko. Kahit kilala ko yung writer, nga si Yvette, kahit kilala ko yung writer, usually I read the manuscript, tapos pinapakita ba ako ng studies? Minsan napapakita akong studies, minsan hindi. I think, feeling ko spoiled ako in that way, na I get away with it. Nangyayari na may iba akong books na final art lang yung nasasubmit ko, which is not the normal process.
I guess yun yung na-build na yung trust mo yung pananalig, yung tiwala ng writer sa'yo bilang illustrator, visual storyteller. Kaya siguro
Or baka rin mas, yun yung mga older books pa, I think ngayon mas may proseso na rin yung book development. So
Totoo.
usually it starts with thumbnail studies, a colored study before you proceed.
Process your body of works of
Mhm.
and the interaction we've been having for these 30 years.
Yes. I think yung advantage rin ngayon kasi dahil ang dami-daming illustrators, publishers and writers will choose the illustrator that they feel will best tell their story.
Yes.
So unlike nangyari earlier years na konti lang illustrators, may lalapitan ka ng publisher or writer with the story, tapos sasabihin sa'yo, pwede mo bang i-drawing ng ganitong style? So, I think ngayon dahil sobrang daming illustrators, sobrang daming illustration styles, mas nagkakaroon ng tama yung match ng story with the illustrator. Kaya rin lahat ng stories ko, kunyari po na pang younger children. Kasi ganun yung illustrations ko. Mga madrama na story kay Aldi. Difficult stories kay Beth.
Sorry if I may inject, and there was this question earlier clarified by I forgot her name. And she explained that the term drama meant exaggeration. So yeah. Anyway, so ikaw Aldi or Fran, about that aspect we were talking about, yung
Meron na, sir. Meron akong experience na yung writer nagsasuggest ng mga gusto niya din sa illustrations.
kumusta naman?
Okay lang naman ako. Sige, okay po. Pero parang at the end of the day, parang ako pa rin. Parang yung gusto ko pa rin. Tapos yung mga gusto niyang sinasabi niya naman, yung mga sinasuggest niya na okay to, parang okay to sa sina to. Yung tinitake ko naman. But yun nga, yung final judgment kung ano yung illustrations ay sa part pa rin, I think should be the part of the illustrators. Kasi yun nga para siyang partnership So the text or the story parang is the writer's role. Tapos yung visual storytelling naman is the illustrator's role. So meron kayong kanya-kanyang toka. Kumbaga toka mo na yung illustration. Hindi naman masama na kumuha ng suggestions, di ba? Pero yun nga. Yun, okay lang ako. Okay.
Parang critical yung relationship mo with the writer.
Mm.
I think kaya rin hinihiwalay ng writer ng publisher ang writer sa illustrator. Kasi may sarili kaming ego. So, so syempre yung writer protective sa work nga, yung illustrator protective sa work. So yung I think yung role ng publisher as editor saka yung investing on the book, sila yung maka-balance nun. So I think importante, kunyari from the beginning na ganito yung, magiging collaboration to. Kung malinaw, kunyari as an illustrator, malinaw sa umpisa, collaboration to. Baka mas open ako.
Kaya sobrang thankful tsaka okay sa sobrang thank you sa mga publishers na gano'n. Na parang sila yung nagko-contact sa akin, sila yung nagko-contact sa writer. Yung parang, sila yung parang nasa gitna ng dalawa na. Sila yung nagsasabi ng kung ano yung re-revise ng ganito. Yung publisher talaga, hindi yung writer. Kasi minsan parang may experiences na parang writer din.
Kailangan talaga yung publisher to go between.
Yes.
Kaya depende minsan sa request.
I always say writer, illustrator, and publisher dapat Franny, ikaw?
Wala pa akong experience na yung writer nagre-request ng like unnecessary stuff. Tapos mostly kasi sa mga libro ko ngayon na iniisip ko sila, parang marami kasi akong non-fiction. So karamihan yung interaction is hindi naman sa writer, mas yung expert behind the topic. So kunwari yung mga tukol sa trees, ganon, or yung tukol sa book ko sa tahanan about Maguindanaon instruments. So, yun parang madaming meeting to ask about like materials, ganon. So, tapos yung mga suggestions naman nila and yung comments, hindi naman siya, gawin mong parang pink na lang to, hindi blue. Parang hindi naman ganon yung comments nila. Parang mas technical aspect of the book. So, mas ganon yung experience ko. So, yun din, kaya yun, ulitin ko lang din yung sinabi ni Albi na dun sa mga books ko na fiction and story-based, thank you sa publisher kasi wala silang pinarevise sa akin na sabi kasi ng writer, ganito na lang, pwede bang ganito? So, ayun, iniisip ko tuloy, paano kung nangyari sa akin yun, anong sasabihin ko, parang gano'n. Or ewan ko, parang meron ba akong, iniisip ko din ngayon, meron ba akong story na pwede ba akong mag-request na, pwede bang wag na natin isulat to sa text, the drawing ko na lang, parang gano'n, meron kayang like, meron ba?
Or kung ganun yung sistema.
Ako ginagawa ko yun. Sinasabi ko sa publisher.
Diba?
Kung ganun yung sistema rin, sana pwede rin kami mag-suggest na sa text naman, sa writers. Eh, pwede po ba ganito na lang isulat yun? Diba? Ano lang, para quiz.
Sorry, sige.
Sorry, add ko lang kasi sa Room to Read nga pala, yung workshop namin last year and this year, kasama yung writer sa book develop, ang illustrator sa writer, magkasama sa book development process from the beginning. So maganda yung isa sa mentors namin, si Al Santos. Ang ina-explain nga niya, kunyari pag sumusulat ka ng kanta, pwedeng mauna yung lyrics, pwedeng mauna yung melody, pwedeng sabay. So ganun yung sinusubukan ma-achieve dun sa workshop, na pwedeng mauna yung illustration, susunod yung words, or mauna yung words, susunod yung illustrations. So interesting yung kinalabasan na process. For example, yung ilalabas namin na book na illustrated by Jap Nickel. Parang pinaubaya ni Al sa kanya na tapusin lahat illustration, tas susulat ko kung saan kailangan ng text. So, interesting din yung... So, parang nag-agree lang, parang along the way, nag-agree kami dun sa storyline, sa kung ano yung scenes, pero bahala yung illustrator kung paano niya ipapakita. Tapos, later, yung writer si Al ang nagde-decide, dito, lagyan natin ng dialogue. Dito, narration lang. Itong part na to, maganda na yung visuals, wag natin lagyan ng kahit ano. So, ayan.
So
maganda rin.
Ang sumatotal, mahalaga yung dynamics nung illustrator, writer, and publisher. Kasi ako personally, meron akong, siguro dahil nakasubsub dahil sa trabaho, minsan merong insights na, oo nga, no? Di ba yung gano'n na hindi mo na namalayan dahil talagang 24 hours ka na nagtatrabaho para tapusin yung parang one-man show na ano na yun. Di ba? Just creating a children's book is like staging a one-man show. And pag may mga puna naman, parang ikaw rin, ipoprocess mo yung puna at mag-ano ka rin parang mag-respond ka rin in a way na pagtapos mo na parang I always say, it's always like a thesis defense. Pag pinopresent mo yung i-assert mo rin yung sarili mo kung agree ka o hindi. At if you bring it out in a very professional manner and you voice out why you feel you should stick with what you did or why you accept the comment. So, yung mahalaga rin talaga yung dynamics at mahalaga rin na ma-present mo not just your illustrations, your dummies, your studies in a very professional manner, but ma-assert mo rin ng tama yung bakit ganito sa palagay mo ang direksyon na tinahak mo doon sa illustration. So, all's well that ends well. Okay, let me go through the chat box and the comments. Nag-respond, nagpapasalamat yung nag-comment about the Worldless Books. Maraming salamat daw. Yehey! Si Teacher Maita pala to. Hello, Teacher Maita. So, okay. So, push pa rin ang PBBY sa pag-promote ng Wordless Books. Yehey, Wordless Books. Some more input. From Ivan Reverente. Hello, Ivan.
Hi.
During these times po na threatened ang truth, how do you as artists find courage po to do the work na nagpo-promote ng beliefs nyo, lalo na kapag may threat na mabash sa social media? Nabash na ba kayo sa social media? Or is the social media a venue for us to be bashed or for us to be commended? Parang
Haters. Meron po akong haters.
talaga?
Hindi, wala. Joke lang. Feeling
Aside
yun.
from
Wala.
Super G. Sorry.
Aside Super G, hindi wala.
Siguro that's an interesting
Naisip ko lang
question.
yun.
Is the social media a venue for us to be commented on in terms of our work?
Pag nakapost po siguro sa sa
pag
social
pinag-share.
media, like yung si Kian, 'di ba? Nakapost siya doon. So may mga comments doon na
Kasi sobrang naging high profile din yung Kian eh. No? Tsaka
In
yung
relation-
sobrang relevant siya eh. Yes,
Oo.
Paula, you were going to say
Yeah, in relation to that, no, have you ever been offered to illustrate a story na you said na parang hindi ko that you said no, and what was the reason why?
Interesting
Meron na ba
question
kayo?
yan.
Ako wala
Meron.
pa.
Ako, oo.
May we know why you rejected, Fran?
Teka, piniphrase ko carefully para hindi.
Edit mo muna yung sagot mo ah.
Ako recently pala meron nagtanong sa akin. Pero wala, ang hirap actually sumagot. Hindi ko alam. Actually, binabalanse ko parate kung will I answer honestly or will I just make an excuse. So, could always say I'm busy.
ako po meron. From the publisher yung na contact na kung willing ba akong mag-work with a certain author. So, ano naman siya understanding naman siya parang in-explain ko na sorry po pero alam niyo ang ano ko pa nga doon wordings ko alam niyo naman na gusto kong mag-illustrate ulit at pa rin sa inyo. Parang excited ako magkaroon ng book ulit pero hindi ko talaga hindi ko kasi parang alam ko na may idea siya na kukunin ba niya to o hindi. Siguro nagbaka sakali lang siya. Sige, baka sakaling kunin niya. Pero yun nga, yung parang in-explain ko na hindi ko talaga kaya makipag-work doon sa author na yun. Because it goes against my political beliefs. So, yun, tinanggihan ko. In a nice way na parang sinabi ko pa rin sa publisher na kahit anong paggawa, kahit anong story yan, kahit anong okay ako parang anumang story yan. Willing akong basahin yung manuscript and all that. Pero hindi talaga dito sa author na to na vocal naman dun sa mga beliefs, political beliefs na against mine. Para kasing weird parang, ewan ka, sorry kung ano, pero parang weird na mag-work ako dun sa tao, makikipag-work ako sa taong yun, tapos hindi kami parehas ng pinaniniwalaan na maraming naaapektuhan. Parang, ano yun, parang hindi ko, kahit na walang kinalaman yung story, hindi ko pa alam yung story parang, I'm assuming na wala namang political inclinations yung story kasi children's book at saka kilala ko yung author and how he works. Parang, alam mo yun, parang hindi ko, ako personally, hindi ko talaga, kaya, kahit na hindi ko siya kausapin, kahit na hindi ko siya makipag-interact sa kanya, na alam ko na associated yung work ko sa work niya. Parang ako, hindi ko talaga, parang hindi ko lang mapag-meet yung sa isip ko na parang, okay, mag-work together tayo pero hindi tayo parehas sa ganitong bagay na nakakaapekto sa maraming tao. Parang hindi ko mag-get sa sarili ko na parang, imbis na isipin ko, wag na lang. Sige, wag na lang po. Sorry, thank you. Pero yung time na yun, I was really, really wanting to do another children's book kasi ang tagal ko nang walang children's book So parang, parang alam mo yun, parang kahit na gustong-gusto ko, pero hindi pa rin. So, pero yun nga, hindi ka naman kailangan makipag-bardagulan. So, in a nice way, ganun naman lagi, di ba? Parang out of respect. Kailangan respect.
Parang sumanga yung aspect of truth. Our team is truth-telling, but also yung aspeto na to, you have to be true to yourself also. Yung convictions mo, tsaka yung paninindigan mo, dapat intact pa rin at yung paniniwala mo nandun pa rin. Tsaka siguro regarding the bashing sa social media, whether it's sa social media as a medium or any other medium na kinors yung bashing sa'yo, kung malaking paniniwala mo dun sa gagawin mo, yung paninindigan mo nandun, at tingin mo kaya mong gawin yan in the right and truthful and creative way, di kasi hoda yung bashing, di ba?
Tsaka lagi kong
Kebs sa
Ako
social media.
Oo nga, tsaka lagi kong ina-assume na ano sila, parang paid troll sila. Lagi kong ina-assume may paid troll. So yun na lang yung lagi ko iniisip. Parang,
Pag
hindi
binabash
kita-
ka raw, that's a sign of
Oh.
of
Stress. Pag may
Okay.
haters ka na.
being up there.
Imaginary haters lang ako meron na. Imaginary lang.
Anyway, so let's go back to some more okay. With print media slowly dying out and digital mediums becoming more popular, what do you do to assure that these print forms remain relevant today?
Parang sa akin parang hindi pa siya namamatay dito sa atin.
Actually,
Parang ang dami pa rin ang daming walang access to technology para sabihin natin na pamatay siya dito. Like mas dumadami yung digital versions lalo na sa past pandemic years. So naging accessible naman talaga. And yung iba wala naman talagang choice na kundi magbasa online kasi walang school. Pero like medyo matagal na ko nang naririnig yan na print is dead. Pero hindi naman. So parang
it's there.
nandiyan
Well,
pa
siguro,
siya.
ang nangyari rin dahil mas expensive ang print, parang yung napupunta sa print yung mas importante. Tapos yung mga mas disposable, sila yung nawawala sa print. So yung mga content
Directly to
na
digital.
parang nag-expire, sila yung nawawala sa print. So parang kung makita rin nyo ngayon, kunyari yung mga hardbound books, paganda lang sila ng paganda. Kasi parang nagiging mas precious yung print ngayon.
Premium.
Mas premium siya. So,
Oo, I agree.
Okay, meron tayong permission to go over time 10 minutes. 10 minutes kasi 6 p.m. na. So quickly, let's go to the remaining comments and questions. This is for Paula. Given your broad view of the industry, is there a particular story or topic that you also wish to see in children's books?
Wow. Is there a
Good question yun. Actually,
particular story or topic?
yes.
There's so
Considering the
many,
times,
parang there's so many topics to talk about, but it's
Top of
hard to pick
mind.
one. Top of mind, siguro really something that will, the topic that we're talking about now, because it's so difficult, no, for even for us, diba, to grasp what is true. So parang even for children, parang how do you help them tell the difference? Or at least maybe it's more how do you help them
be more discerning, perhaps?
be more discerning, know how to think?
Mhm.
Kasi diba, syempre, children will depend on adults, will believe what their parents say, up to a certain age. Pero yung very young children talaga, diba? So, how do you develop that? Pero I think it's also developing parents, maybe children's books for parents, how to read to your children, how to talk about things with your children. Kasi I think yun yung kulang. Sometimes you just give the book to your child and expect them to read, but you don't spend time. So parang I think that's something, we need more interaction between the parents and the child, reading together. I think that's one. Even like this, diba, yung illustrators, for you guys to be able to talk to children also, and for authors to talk to children, for them to understand na how this becomes a book. So I don't think I answered the question.
Oh, you did, actually.
Oh.
So attention, publishers and writers. Meron na ba yung tip from Paula? Okay, thank you. Okay, let's go through some. Medyo marami-rami pa eh. Okay, siguro question sa lahat ng illustrators. Siguro before we wrap up. What are the top 3 skills or factors siguro illustrators need to be successful? Lawak. Well,
Miss
Parang ano,
Universe question.
oo nga eh. Thank you for that wonderful question. Oh, any thoughts on this question? I'm sure, merong magka-crop up. Yung mga random things that seem very irrelevant but vitamins.
Perseverance.
Ayun, ayun si Fran. Perseverance daw.
I'm sorry?
Perseverance. Parang hindi siya skill ba siya? Mas
Yeah, it
basta
goes
parang
beyond
yung
skill eh. Kaya nga sabi ko factors, hindi lang skills that you think are important.
parang so far kasi yung isang natutunan ko about illustration, parang ano siya, long game siya eh. Hindi siya parang mag-i-illustrate ka 5 years. Tapos hindi siya parang office job na parang meron kang plan, mapaplan mo siya na mag-work ka hanggang tong years, tapos after na magre-retire. Parang pag illustrator ka, parang ano siya eh, tuloy-tuloy lang siya. So parang, I think, well, late ko na to na-realize, syempre. So napagod na muna ako bago ko siya na-realize. Pero ano siya, parang yung perseverance, like to learn new things always, hindi lang at the start. Parang ganon. Or having a beginner's mindset kahit na matagal ka nang gumagawa ng libro. Parang, hindi ko alam kung paano yun, parang nade-develop mo lang yun through working. Pero I think important yun sa kung gusto mong mag-career as an illustrator. So, pati hindi lang yung sa working part, pati yung sa katawan mo na parang kailangan mo i-goal na kung mag-illustrator ka, matagal ka hanggang tumanda ka. So, kailangan alagaan mo rin yung katawan mo sa umpisa pa lang. So,
Vitamins talaga.
vitamins and So, yun,
Tulog.
parang yun lang yung naisip ko, parang looking back, ano ba yung mga natutunan ko so far. Hindi naman siya mas kasi yung skill mismo na as in drawing, parang kung gagawa ka tuloy-tuloy, kahit sa umpisa hindi ka marunong, eventually, gagaling ka rin eh. Kasi kung
Pero kailangan
parati
mong
ka
gawin.
magpa-practice. Kailangan mong gawin. Kailangan mong mag-practice. And in the words of Rommel Hawson, kailangan deliberate yung practice mo kung may gusto ka talagang goal na ma-achieve. O, diba?
Quotable quote from
Oo, katabi ko kasi siya sa office dati. So, marami akong input from Rommel na tips. So, yun yung naisip ko.
Any more from you guys?
Maganda rin yun to be part of a community of people who like also books and illustrating. I think malaking effect kunyari yung ink. Kasi naka-encourage to be with like-minded people. Lalo na kunyari sa bahay mo, kung ikaw lang ang artist, wala kang, kahit anong kwento mo sa ginagawa mo, tapos wala namang nakakaintindi. Wala silang pake. Walang mangyayari sa'yo. So, minsan kailangan mo rin ng ka-share nung ginagawa mo. Minsan, encouraging ring makita yung nagtatrabaho yung iba. Nalala ko before, pag Alcala Prize, nagko-contest within ink kung sino yung mananalo. So sasali lahat, tapos lalo lahat. Tapos lahat gumagaling kasi sabay-sabay. Kaya nakakatuwa.
Ako sir, siguro, hindi yung mga natutunan ko lang din, tsaka yung gusto ko na meron ako, na ma-share ko yun sa iba. Unang-una, dapat present ka, and dapat you'll show up to those. Kasi yung opportunities, baka i-turn down mo once, hindi na dumating ulit. Like yung kahit na yung time na nag-start ako na-mention ko kanina, yung 2007, yung mga referrals, I was referred by my brother and my sister-in-law dun sa mga illustration jobs na yun. So maski meron akong office work na sa BPO, kahit na puyat-puyat ako, dahil sa I wanted to do illustrations nga, edi present ako that I showed up na nag-submit pa rin ako, nag-try ako. And then second, walang shortcut eh. Wala talagang shortcut kasi yun nga yung lagi ko sinasabi, especially din ngayon sa social media, yung mga nakapost sa IG. Ako rin naman guilty eh. Yung mga gusto nating artist, nakikita natin yung mga finished products na nila eh. But what we miss out is the process that goes behind it, na hindi ka agad maganda yung ginawa ng artist na yun. Kaya siya nag-come out dun sa mga post na yun. So yun dapat yung laging maisip nating lahat, especially younger illustrators, na walang shortcut na hindi pwedeng ganito na kaagad yung gawa ko. Tapos wala ka namang dinaan ng process na hindi ka naman nag-continuous work. Walang ganun eh. Walang ganun, Mars. Parang ganun. Parang walang ganun. So parang ako parang may nagtanong sa akin dati, paano ba dumami yung followers? Eh, ang unti-unti nga na followers ko. So parang ba't hindi naalala yun? Parang bakit? Para saan? Parang, ano kasi siya parang gusto niya maging artist. Pero ang question niya, paano maging marami followers? Malay ko naman, ako nga unti-unti na followers ko. So yun, then walang shortcut. Then number 3, always yung parang humility and maging thankful ka lagi. Maging thankful ka, lagi ka mag-look back dun sa nag-umpisa ka na, sino yung mga tumulong sa'yo, like yun nga, sino yung nag-refer sa'yo, sino yung naniwala sa gawa mo na parang ikaw nagda-doubt ka sa mga gawa mo, pero yung iba, sini-cheer ka na, maganda ng gawa mo, ganyan. Yung mga new friends, yung community that you belong to, ang Inc., yung mga friends na nabuo dun sa group, maging thankful ka dun sa mga galleries, sa mga bumibili ng artworks mo na mapapa-question ka nung una, bakit binibili artwork ko? Parang nagtataka ka pa, di ba? Pero yun, naging always be thankful na hindi porke, para kasi ako napapansin ko sa iba na parang nandyan na sila, marami ng post, marami na tumatangkilik sa gawa nila. Parang medyo nag-iiba. Medyo nag-iiba nung nag-i-start pa lang nila. Parang ganun lang. Parang, so, always be thankful, ganun. Wala namang mawawala kung if you parang may hindi mo iisa sa isang tabi yung mga tumulong sa iyo nag-start pa and all that. Yun lang.
Hindi yan yun lang. Ang dami-dami. Ang dami-dami yung...
Sorry. Ang dami ko pala sinabi.
I mean that in a good way. Ang daming na input and bilang isang guro at naging estudyante rin, ang dami kong tinake down notes. So siguro to sum up what we've accomplished this afternoon regarding the topic, I would say that visual storytelling is really an important aspect in creating a children's book. And the truth, which is what we're centering on, the truth is fostered in visual storytelling by the stages that we have to go through. Masalimuot yung proseso eh. And also by the dynamics of the book creators, yung pinagdadaanan natin as a team together. And most importantly, I guess there has to be an aspect there that tayo mismo, we have to be true to ourselves. At wag natin i-underestimate yung kapasidad ng mga bata na umunawa, lumagay doon sa sitwasyon, at to read and to see behind those images na pinapakita natin sa ating mga nilikha. So yun, kaya yung truth telling is definitely a component in visual storytelling. And with that, bago tayo magpaalam, ay gusto ko muna magpasalamat. I would like to thank specifically the Ateneo Art Gallery for having us, illustrators, and helping us stage this Art Speak online together with ang Ilustrador ng Kabataan and the Philippine Board on Books for Young People. Maraming salamat sa lahat, sa mga ilustrador, Aldi, Fran, Liza, Paula, and Boots, and yung buong Ateneo Art Gallery for helping us stage this afternoon. And personally, I feel very good having this. And based on the inputs, the questions, ang daming nag-iinteresado at sana tuloy na mag-iinteresado sa prosesong dinadaanan natin as visual storytellers. And the children's book will always be there, no matter what happens, pandemic or non-pandemic, super technology or not. The tangible book will always be important and it will always be a part of the child, the Filipino child. So, maraming salamat at magandang hapon sa ating lahat. Yay! We did it!
Thank you
thank you.
po.
Thank you to Totet for that.
Thank you, Totet.
Maraming
Closing.
salamat.
The summary was very parang fitting, no? And thank you to Aldi, Lisa, and Fran and Paula, no, for sharing your respective experiences. Merong tanong si Liza, if up to when ang exhibit, siguro narinig mo ang balita. May update kami, i-announce namin ngayon na i-extend natin yung exhibition, yung Ang Ink Story until August 27. That's the last Saturday of
Yan the extension.
Yes. Actually, almost 1 year na yung run. 10 months
Oo nga.
actually yung run nung
Yes,
exhibit.
thank you very much.
Wala nang reason para hindi makapunta. Sorry, guilty.
Oo nga. Tsaka kasi maraming estudyante na dumadating na uli,
Yes.
little by little, at least from Ateneo. And of course, we're accepting visitors from outside as long as you register so you
Yeah,
can
so-
enter the campus.
So pre-registration is still must.
Yes. So this is the registration to enter the campus, not to enter the
Okay,
museum. That's
correct.
always the it's an administration requirement. So yun, we're, next event to wait for is the catalog launch. So that's what the team of Liza and Isa Nazareno, the ink team, is working on. So we will send an announcement as soon as we have a definite date for that. At least there's more time for you to work on the catalog, and hopefully within early August perhaps we can launch the catalog for
Thank
this
you, Isa.
exhibition. Can we ask Isa to turn on her camera? So yes, there's a link, a bit.ly link that you can use to register. Again, that's to enter the campus really. No, students actually in Ateneo who are already on campus can simply walk in the gallery, even employees. So yes, we've been getting more visitors. Actually, starting this week, today, in fact, we've had, I think, siguro I would say mga 100 visitors na walk in.
Wow.
No, yung mga students particularly. So go to the website of Ateneo Art Gallery or even the Facebook page. The link can be found there. And again, we thank you. Yes, Isa, there. So maybe we can ask everyone to for a quick
Screenshot.
screenshot. No? So on the screen, you also see our different contact information. Sige. So thank you PBBY also for working with us on this project. I think it would be we are open to continuing hosting once in a while your conversations because it's very much relevant to contemporary art practice. The problems that you shared are actually not just for book illustrators but artists in general. And it's interesting how you each would have your own way of because you have a different mode of production, so iba yung how you would tackle those problems. So we welcome future collaborations like this, maybe having an annual hosting an annual conversation online,
We'll take note of that.
Yes, we can do that. Perhaps we can also consider an on-site event
Mhm.
once it's allowed.
We're very grateful that you hosted this event for us, especially online. It really shows that it takes an entire community to talk about truth, to talk about different aspects, and we all share the same goals.
Mm-mm.
So
Sige. So thank you again. ST, do we have the
Chat na.
screenshot? Sandali lang.
Para merong proof
Okay.
of life.
Yes. ST and Joseph, can you turn on your cameras also
Yes, please.
so you can join the picture?
Sige po. I'll see if I can spotlight.
So thank you to the listeners, the attendees. in the Zoom room, also in our Facebook Live page. And also, I'm sure in the Ang Inc. Facebook page, no? You had several attendees. ST, ikaw, nasan ka? Ayan,
Okay.
there.
Ready? Okay, 1, 2, 3. Okay, one more. 1, 2, 3. Thank you, everyone.
Okay,
Thank
thank
you,
you.
and good
Thank you
afternoon.
also.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you. Bye.
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 God bless everyone. Thank you.
O yan, nag-commit
Bye.
na ako sa ano ha.